I'm not that.
Committee of the whole meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call tonight. So we have Councillor Alford.
Here.
Councillor Allen.
Here.
Councillor Brennan.
Present.
Councillor McKenna.
Present.
Councillor Dwyer.
Present.
Mayor Panko.
Present.
I think that's everybody. I'm going through my screens here. All right, and Malcolm, do you want to do one for the staff?
Yes, I can confirm that we have Troy with us this evening, Janet Gozil, Carl Grenke, Jason Barlow, Jennifer Miller, Rick Cheeseborough, Carrie Costello, and Art Manhire.
Great, thank you, Malcolm. So we'll start with amendments to the agenda. Mayor Penko.
Yes, I'd like to add item Mayor's Task Force for Economic Recovery.
Okay, we'll put that as 8G.
Sure.
Okay, and Councillor Allen?
Yes, could I have H, library staff?
All right, so G, Mayor's Task Force, and H, library staff. To priority issues, any other amendments tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to disclosure of monetary interest. Seeing none, we have no delegations tonight. We'll go to the adoption of minutes. We have the April 6th, 2020 Committee of the Whole Meeting and the April 20th Committee of the Whole Meeting. Does anybody want to move? Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor Allen. All those in favor? And the minutes are adopted. We'll move on now to CAO and directors reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have several this evening, starting with Ms. Miller.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just two short items tonight. The first one is that we have worked with our partners, the Chamber, the DBA, and the Small Business Advisory Center to create and send out a survey for our local business community. This will help us better understand the impact of the resources and supports they've received to date, and it'll help us identify any gaps and risks that they're experiencing as well. So that's been sent out pretty widely. It closes on Friday. If we have businesses listening and they would like to complete the very quick survey, it is also on our website under the business resource page in the COVID-19 section. So we'll just put a shout out to businesses today to give us a hand with that. And just another little note that if you're not already registered, the Chamber of Commerce is having a dinner club starting this week on Wednesday night. It's a great way to support local businesses. So the food is being virtually provided by Chuckles Jack. There'll be a tour of Smith's Shoes, so you can see the new in-stock shoes for the season. And there'll be a game of Jeopardy as well. So you can register for that on their Facebook page. And we encourage everyone to attend. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions? Hopefully we see everybody Wednesday night for Jeopardy. All right, next report, please.
Next one, we have Ms. Costello.
Thank you. The first is an update from Planning Services. On April 15th, the Ontario government passed Regulation 149-20 to implement Planning Act amendments to establish special procedural rules for the duration of the COVID emergency. As a result of this new OREG, notices of decision circulated for Planning Act applications released on or after February 26th and before April 15th are now considered invalid. If anyone in the public has received a notice of decision outlining a municipal decision and appeal rights under the Planning Act, for any of the following applications, the previous notice is considered null and void and will be reissued to all parties who received notice. So those three that I indicated above are for 24 Alfred Street, which was a severance application, draft plan of subdivision for Maple Ridge, as well as the zoning bylaw amendment for Bellamy Farm Phase 1 and 2. So OREG 149-20 does not prohibit continuation of public meetings or decisions made by the town of Smiths Falls under the Planning Act. However, our planning advisory group will be meeting virtually in the same format we are doing right now. Please note that Regulation 149-20 effectively supersedes the limitations previously outlined through the Emergency Resolution 73-20 passed on March 20th as it relates to planning matters. So wanted to give council that update. Also from planning services, early June, they'll see 2 zoning amendments coming forward. And as well, PAC will be meeting using the virtual format on May 14th to discuss 2 minor variances. One regarding lot size reductions and the other is a consent application. As also, I'd like to remind citizens of Smith Falls and people visiting that we still do have our 2-hour parking provision in the downtown core. So people are reminded that they're only allowed to park in a metered space for a maximum of 2 hours. And as all of you are aware, we do have bylaw enforcement out, not only for the COVID enforcement issues, but as well still for our parking enforcement issues. And that's all, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Any questions? How do members of the public attend the Zoom meeting for
the virtual for the PAC for
yeah?
When the agenda goes out, we'll be sending out the link the same as we do for these meetings for the members of the public to attend on YouTube or whatever mechanism they choose. So that will be advertised.
Great, thank you. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to our next report.
Okay, our third verbal report is from Mr. Manhire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of quick reports. The childcare CDC numbers are going up. The province has expanded the list of people that are eligible to participate in the service. And so the county is doing a review right now of applications based on that extension. We had another 4 last week, and we'll update on numbers as they come through. But the county, just as a reminder, the county is doing the intake piece, so they evaluate criteria in terms of eligibility, and then forward that information to us. We have been in touch with Parks Canada along the way. Parks Canada's plan is still to bring the water levels up for the long weekend, but the locks will not be open. Neither will town docks. So they will be floating in place, but we will not have those available until restrictions open up enough that we can do that. We have had a couple of notable acts of vandalism in the parks over the last week or so. Police have been informed and they are watching. So we're hoping that people are making better choices as they go. Our new pair of swans was introduced to the basin, and quickly with the flow of water in the river, were washed down the rapids, and we were able to recover them in lower reach. We brought them up and determined that it's probably better for us to hold off until the water levels come up and the flow rate isn't quite as strong as it is now. So we're looking at that for after the long weekend in May.
All right, thank you, Art. Jay, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Art, for that, and appreciate the report. I'm just wondering about the CDC, and recently the province had expanded the list of essential workers, i.e. People that work, for instance, in grocery stores, which I thought was great. Is there an uptake on that from that sort of segment of retail that is open now?
Yes, that's what we're seeing currently is people in grocery stores, veterinarian clinics, some of the other services that have been deemed essential all along.
Yeah.
And as council knows, it's crucial to have childcare support for supporting the working population.
Great, thanks for that.
Any other questions? Art, I got 2 questions this week on the swans in the park. The first was somebody noted that the mute swans are an invasive species, and they were wondering if there's any adverse environmental effects or if they escaped, if there could be any issues to the ecosystem. And the second question was just how aggressive would they be if they've got nesting? I don't know what you call the little ones, but should people be staying away from? Cygnus? Okay.
Yeah.
How far should people be social distancing from the swans once they start to nest?
It's always a good practice to keep your distance from any breeding animals, birds especially, but they are, as we understand it, they are less aggressive than the swans that we had in there. So they will defend their nesting territory, mostly from other birds. But we do ask the public to stay away from any nesting birds or any brooding animals. In terms of, it is an introduced species. It was introduced in the early 1800s from Europe. These birds are pinioned. They're essentially pets that will be kept by the town in the Victoria Park Basin. They are pinned as well, which means that they cannot fly. So we will be rounding them up and capturing them again for the winter. They are capable of making it through the winter, but we do prefer them in a safer environment during the winter period. There is some impact in terms of their feeding behavior, but we have two birds in a fairly large area in terms of that upper basin, so we're not concerned about fish habitat at this point. We will be consulting with the Cataraqui folks to just determine that it is not going to do damage to the ecosystem.
Great. Maybe we can train them to eat the weeds in front of the swimming hole.
That's first on my list.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Any other questions? Nikki, no? Okay, we'll move on to our
Next one
report.
is Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick update on today's Municipal Emergency Control Group meeting. We met again this morning. We involved Dr. Stewart in our group to bring us up to speed on some of the items that are coming forth. Just for statistical purposes, we've seen an approximate 2,000 case increase since Thursday in the total number of cases. Just under 3,000 people have recovered, which is a 3,000 increase. And for the people who have passed away, 1,216 deaths as of today. So just over 250 in Ontario. Across Canada, there's been, again, a 3,000 increase in the number of confirmed, 4,000 increase in the number that have recovered, and approximately 700 increase in the amount of fatalities. Part of the discussion today also covered the farmers market at the Heritage House, which needs to be a drive-through. We've looked at 3 other vendors from last year that can return, but what we're asking the vendors to do is to contact the municipality. Art's going to reach out to Councillor McKenna, who's been working with this, the farmers market on this initiative to let everybody know what the parameters are, when they can start up and where they can set up. The Premier announced over the weekend that there's a number of businesses under the new guidelines that will be permitted to start up again. So golf courses and marinas are now permitted to prepare to open, but no solid date given on their time to open. Car dealerships by appointment, landscaping is permitted to start. Garden centers, providing they have the curbside pickup, and touchless car washes, to name a few. One of the interesting items that came forth over the weekend was a company in Ottawa who excuse me, who had designed some new testing kits. Those kits have been producing some false positives and false negatives. It's supposed to be a DNA kit that's has the ability of providing results at a fairly quick rate. So the Ottawa-based company has been doing a recall on those. In Lanark, Leeds, Grenville, there was 9 false positive cases. So certainly that's a big concern with people thinking they may or may not have it. in dealing with that, just to find out that the machine was not accurately recording the testing results. Dr. Stewart does appreciate the move for the province to start reopening while still reinforcing the social distancing or physical distancing. She mentioned that Kingston has a very detailed public health plan, and Lanark Leeds Grenville will be starting to work on theirs. I'll be participating with Dr. Stewart. We're asking anyone that has any suggestions, by all means, they can send them through to me or to the CAO or to Deputy Clerk Bennett, and we'll make sure they're included when working on that plan. Willowdale has met with the health unit last week to get further guidance on their outbreak situation. A CDC employee failed screening questions, but it came back negative. Again, that's a quick turnaround time results for that. We discussed pay protocol for certain situations that we had not encountered when we put out that list of 24 situations back probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it had to do with a staff member whose child may or may not be suspected of having the virus, and what the process is for that staff member, whether they're quarantined, whether they're to return to work, whether they and the rest of the family has to be tested. So Dr. Stewart did provide an update on that. The municipality is currently working on staff members who may or may not be required to stay home because of that potential. Contingency plans are being developed by all departments right now to take a look at vacation schedules to ensure that we're not going to be short-staffed and make arrangements for those individuals who are wishing to change their vacation schedule, certainly because they can't go anywhere right now or do a whole lot. We received 1,000 surgical masks this morning, just following our meeting. Of the initial report when it said that we're waiting for them. Well, right after the meeting, they arrived. So we got ample stock, pretty well of everything that we need for protective clothing. We've issued 450 of them within 15 minutes after arriving. So we will be putting in a second order. Just as quick as they come in, they're going out. The Health and Safety Committee will be meeting on May the 12th, and we're going to be reviewing the current contingency plans and any potential contingency plans, just depending on how long this pandemic is going to go on, and having items in place under the Joint Health and Safety Committee in the event it does stretch out. The mayor will be working to create that economic task force. The terms of reference are under development, and as the mayor indicated, he'll be discussing that later on this evening. The Housing Task Force will reconvene next week, and they'll be using the Zoom platform. So a very important segment for Smith Falls to keep that going and keep working on that. And the last item is the compost site will be opening up Wednesday, and the staffing, it will be staffed by temporarily laid off crossing guards. That's the update I have for the emergency management. I just have 2 quick items to mention. Friday, May the 1st was recognized as First Responders Day in Canada. Pretty important day. And today is International Firefighter Day. Certainly another equally as important day to all of us. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Happy International Firefighter Day, Chief.
Thank you.
I think we have a question from Councillor Brennan.
We do. I have actually a couple of questions, and thank you, Chief, for all you do, and we really appreciate it. The first question was about the Heritage House Market Days. It just started last year and with some success. And you had mentioned there was going to be a drive-through. I watched Premier Ford today, and the issue about the garden centers was that the grocery stores often operate a garden center, which is a walk-through. The garden centers that are standalone are now drive up and pick up, and I imagine that's what the idea is here. But if that changes, would there be an opportunity for the Heritage House's events once a week which is largely there's crafts, but there's foodstuffs there too as well. Would there be an opportunity for them to operate the same way with the distancing and all the rest of it? There's quite a bit of room there, and so hopefully that would be able to happen if the province changes their stance, as I expect they will.
Thank you. Through the chair. Certainly, we monitor the provincial development on a daily basis, and as the premier or his cabinet make changes to the way business is being conducted, we can institute that just as quickly as they allow us to. And should some of the restrictions that are currently in place now, as you indicated, the curbside pickup in the garden centers at some of the grocery stores, should that change, that they're going to start allowing people in, then by all means we'll be changing ours. And just as a side note, the province of Quebec is to reopen a number of its businesses starting this week. As they started loosening the restrictions, there was an increase immediately of 72 plus cases, some in critical condition. The premier announced today that he is holding off for an additional week. Dr. Stewart has commended the efforts of Smith Falls on the way we're handling the situation, the way that we're progressing at an extremely slow rate, but it's very consistent with what the province is doing. We're not jumping too quickly to open something up or remove restrictions. To be doing it in a very planned event in that way. That's why we've been, in my mind, certainly, and in Dr. Stewart's mind, very successful in our approach to the situation.
Thanks. And through the chair, I have two more things with your indulgence. The CDC, and you had mentioned there was a negative test, but is there a mechanism through the health unit that will provide for testing for not only the children, but the people that are working there, so they're tested hopefully on a regular basis?
There is anytime that there is a suspicion of symptoms or symptoms related to this, the testing, and that question was asked this morning, if a child exhibits any symptoms, is the family or the parents who drive up, are they tested as well? And Dr. Stewart had indicated no, that just the individual would be tested, and they're very hopeful that within 3 days that they would have a test result back, which would determine whether or not any additional testing of family members would be required, and what the quarantine process would be in the event while they wait.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. Art, did you have a follow-up there too?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We got confirmation this afternoon that all the staff at the CDC will be tested, and not as a result of the preliminary test, but as a result of being a frontline worker in that circumstance. So all of them will be tested, just to confirm.
That's good to hear. And finally, through the chair, if you don't mind, the compost site that's good news. But and I'm getting asked this question because the bags are on the road. Are we going to be picking up the bags at some point?
Mr. Chairman, I'll pass that to the CAO.
I have bags in the garage.
Yeah, so hang tight with your bags of yard waste. So just to expand on the chief's report, we are opening the yard waste composting site early. It was scheduled to open this Saturday. We're opening this Wednesday. We'll have it, it'll be open every Wednesday for the month of May and every Saturday. And it'll stay open every Saturday until November. So to answer your question, people can drop off their leaf and yard waste. We do have a pickup scheduled for the 20th to the 22nd of May. And that's in the municipal calendar, if people want to refer to the calendar.
Yes.
But that's coming up.
Yes, so that stands. That's good. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, any further questions? CAO Morris?
Yeah, just a comment. I think it's symbolic of how quickly things are moving. The chief's report was from this morning's emergency management meeting, where the decision was not to test anyone except those exhibiting symptoms. And this afternoon it changed. So we're doing our best as staff to keep up on those changes, but they're coming very quickly. I appreciate the question that you asked. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further questions, I think we can move on to the next report.
Okay, so the first item I had was the yard waste composting site. The only thing I can add to what I already said is that we do have safety protocols in place to ensure physical distancing. So we ask people that attend the compost site to follow the instructions and directions from the attendants and exit the vehicle when instructed to. Again, we're trying to keep people safe and distanced from each other, but we obviously want to encourage people to do what's right with organic waste and bring it to the compost site. So the only other item I had was just a preview of what's coming at our next meeting on the 19th of May. The 18th is Victoria Day, so we'll be meeting on the Tuesday, the 19th. We have a couple of items I'll just mention at this point. We will have the final tax rate bylaw, so that sets the rates for 2020 based on the budget that you approved back in January. We'll also have an update on our financial status and cash flow as a follow-up to our conversation last week, or 2 weeks ago at our last meeting. At this point, the next tax due date is set for June 30th. So I'll just offer that as a reminder. The other item, two items that are noteworthy that will come forward, we'll have service sustainability review for Parks and Recreation. That'll be presented to you on the 19th. And lastly, as we talked about before, we'll have the Victoria Park Campground report coming forward as well. So lots of big issues on the next agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, we can move on to correspondence items. We had two this week. First one was a letter from Jeff Gordon, who's a vegetation management specialist from Canadian Pacific. He is writing to let us know that they're going to be doing weed and brush control on the rail corridor in town. If anybody's looking for more information on that, they can go to CPR's website at cpr.ca under the community tab and then click on living near the railway, and there's an in-depth schedule there. You can also phone 1-800-766-7912. Councillor Dwyer, do you have a question, comment?
Yeah, sorry. Can we make sure that gets shared on social media through the town's website and point people who have questions and inquiries directly to CP so that the municipality doesn't get flooded when giant boom spraying starts to occur? Yes, thank you.
Great idea. Any other comments on that one? All right, our second letter is from Ernie Hardman, the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. This is to address the exception under the Emergency Management and Civil Protections Act to allow community gardens for the 2020 season. This has been approved by the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ontario, and our local health unit has come up with some great guidelines that you can find on their website. If you go to the health unit's website, all you have to type in is gardens in the search bar at the top, and it'll bring you to the page with all the rules and guidelines for community gardens this season. Any questions or comments on that one? Jay?
Yeah, so we all know that we have a